Between 1963 and 1966, I went to jail 4 times for small sentences. And but the hardest place of all was McGill Boys Training School in Adelaide for teenagers. That was the toughest place, actually, except for Bathurst. Bathurst was pretty tough. I mean, it had plenty of tough guys. But what's the story I'm going to tell you today? I can't put pictures up anymore because it's too much work, so I'll just talk. What happened? Let's think now. Oh, fuck. Right. I used to go to a pinball palace in Pitt Street. No, it was in George Street. It was called The Happiest Place on Earth. It had a great lot of electronic baseball games and a bear shooting machine and a jukebox, and I thought it was a good spot to meet girls. I was pretty clean and well dressed in a rocker style, and I slouched around trying to look like James Dean, and a plainclothes copper saw through my bullshit and took me to Central Police Station to check who I was and what I was up to. But when he found my police record and realised I had no legal means of support, he charged me with vagrancy. I didn't mention a place I was staying because maybe the coppers would have gone there and I'd still get busted, and they would too. So I was locked in a holding cell with other crims and drunks, and the next morning sentenced to 3 months hard labour. The Black Maria was a big van of steel, a big black van. It was dark inside, had no windows. It comes at 4 o'clock and the crims were driven to Long Bay Jail. At 5 p.m. we entered the cold steel gates, told to strip, change into jail uniform, which was long cotton trousers and a pretty cool jacket actually, just a bit like a denim jacket, but not as tight. And I think the shirt was red, white and blue, very small stripes up and down. And it was short-sleeved. I didn't see any long-sleeve shirts in the Bay in 64 or 5. Blokes under 24 were sent to the boys' wing. Older crims went to other sections. The first thing crims ask you is, what you in for? And when I said vagrancy, I got jokes about how a young bloke was on an old man's charge. So I bullshitted I was a burglar the cops hated. The tougher you talk back then, the less you were picked on. These days, I don't think that'd work. So I was treated with a little bit more respect, but not much, because I was dressed in one-size-fits-all, baggy, soft trousers and skinny in me shirt sleeve shirt. I looked like a village idiot. And prison short back and sides didn't help. Everybody got a short back and sides when they went in, no matter who you were. And the only people young crims respected was an all-out brawler, and they could tell I was not. But it was necessary to act brave, or I'd be stood over. The only thing you got in 64 was tobacco. Every week we'd get 2 ounces of government-issued tobacco, 2 packets of paper and a box of matches that we were allowed razor blades to shave with, old-fashioned razor blades with a blade that you had to screw in, and we'd split the matches into 8 to make the matches last. Some people split them into 4, but good splitters could make 8. And the only thing you could buy from outside, well, I don't know if there was buy-ups. I don't think there was buy-ups in 64 because I never saw anybody with any luxury goods. And I never got any buy-ups. And you'd only get about 10 cents a day, which wasn't much even back then. Well, it was 4p a day, 4 pennies a day when I first went in. So if you did 3 months, I'd come out with about, I don't know, but not much. So I saved my money until I got out because the food was pretty good. Well, I reckon it was. At night, the only thing Crims could buy was on Sunday was a Sunday newspaper and the radio station, and Long Bay also had a little radio box in the room. It was a little box. It wasn't a radio, but it was a box. And out of that came a radio station controlled by a screw in a control room somewhere. And in the bay, the radio station was 2GB. And that was a shit-house station back then. But the good thing about it was I think that on Saturday you could listen to the races. So guys could bet. But it never played rock and roll. It was a talk radio show almost, so not many people liked it. And the library was it had a great library, and so I read a lot of science fiction and all sorts of stuff. It was sad to be wasting 3 months in jail, but this was just part of paying my dues, I thought. Kerouac had never gone to jail, so it was one up on him. And we had single cells, so I didn't have to share. Oh, fuck, the first time I went in... Fuck, this must be the second time I went in. Because the first time in 63, I went in to what was called the boys' wing. They were 3 to a cell, and it was a real shock to me. Fuck, I don't want to share a cell with 2 other guys. But that's another story. I'll tell you about that next time. Anyway, I never understood why Crims hate solitary. I adored it. At 8 o'clock, we had to leave the security of the cell and join the yard, and I feared being stood over. But I would rather have been injured than be thought soft. And we had a job. First, they sent me to some carpentry shop, but I wasn't very good at it. And then they sent me to the bludger's yard to work. And it was sitting on a wooden bench at a table with a dozen other morons folding lottery advertising brochures and stuffing them into envelopes. So some other mug could post them to Tattersalls customers. That was the lotto back then, Tattersalls. So we folded lottery tickets all day, and it seemed to last forever. And my workmates, they teased each other about latent homosexuality. That was the main joke, testing out each other whether they were fags or not. And everybody sort of joked about it. And I was very uneasy around all this fucking talk, and I was waiting for some tough mug to give me a fucking blast, and it happened. But when they saw I just laughed it off, they picked on some other sensitive kid. And during tea breaks in the yard, I saw fucking the most vicious fighting I'd ever seen, more than I'd seen in movies. They fought like Muay Thai beasts and smashing heads on concrete and kicking balls. And when the screws very slowly came up and yelled them stop, they'd just clean the blood off and forget about it and go back into the fucking workshop together without fighting, and forget about it. So on Saturdays, 1 yard at a time, because there was no TV back then, the only time I ever saw a TV set in jail was in the recreation room at Bathurst. But that must have been 1966. Before then, I never saw a TV in jail, ever. On Saturdays, we went in a chapel, 1 yard at a time, and we watched a Hollywood movie projected on the wall by a screw. And even watching the pictures, you had to keep your guard up, I was always on alert, waiting for some tough guy to pick on me. And eventually it happened in Bathurst. But that's another story. I'll tell you about it later. Reading good books and keeping me bum covered and sleeping as much as possible, time passed. And but it's not a very good story today because I was describing what happened the second time, but a lot better things happened next time. All right, so that'll do for now. Oh, and before some old timer tells me there was never TV in Bathurst, there was a TV set, but it was out on the farm section of Bathurst. Yeah, and that's when I had my second fight. But I'll tell you about that later. Well, it wasn't a fight. The fucking guy took pity on me and didn't kill me. But I was shaping up to him, though, so I didn't fucking back down. But he took pity on me that time. And No Jail, No Bail talks about shower shoes. Well, we never had shower shoes. People used to just go in the shower and wash and then make sure they dry their feet real good afterwards. And I don't think anybody got tinea. Nobody ever had. All we ever had was big, thick socks and big boots. I never saw any flip-flops in jail back in the 60s. And in Adelaide, there was a little bowl of, a little trough of disinfectant that you had to walk through before you got in the showers and when you got out. So apparently the disinfectant was there to stop people getting tinea. But I never saw any of that when I was in the Bay or Bathurst.